Hello, welcome to Creative Crusade. This is the results of week 1 of working on proportions of the human body. So here you can see is just some things that I found useful, that I think that helped me, that I found out really, and that I think documenting helped me draw more proportions better. So with the first one is the collarbone. Now to know where this one starts is when you're drawing out your proportions, right? With your head size, you got all that down. I didn't really do a very good job of explaining that earlier in the first video, but hopefully I'll try to explain that later today too. So the collarbone, it starts just below the shoulder line, or not the shoulder line, but the just below the box of where you draw. I'll show you that later. I'll show you how to do all this later. I'll actually draw it all out again. This is just a reference sheet for me to remember what to say. The middle of the rib cage, it ends after the first head length. So after you draw your first head, that's where the rib cage is going to end, right there in the middle of your chest, right? Also, similarly, it'll like about on the second head, just like about 2/3 or less, somewhere in there is where the sides of your rib cage will end as well, right there. And your top two abs, for proportions, they will fit in that second head's length of your abdomen, or using this proportion system of using head sizes. In the second head size, or second head length of the body, that is where the two abs will fit. And the top ab is takes up about 2/3 of the space, and you can't really see the line. The line goes about from here to there. That's about the line that's about the length of the second head. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be relatively close to your head size, right? Now between the second head size and the third head size, that's where your belly button is going to go, and that's where the next set of abs will start. Now this week we're just working on proportions. I'm not really going into anatomy really. I'm just saying where they go, kind of. I don't really know how to draw these that well. We'll get to that later in future weeks of practice. But once you get these proportions down, you can just draw in basic shapes like this, and then just throw in the anatomy on top, or putting in meat on the bones. And the last thing that I noticed is that the bulge, like if you look at a thigh, like it kind of sounds weird. If you look at a thigh, and you'll notice there's the biggest point. I guess I'll exaggerate a little bit here. You'll see that this point sticks out the most, and to know where this was, what I found anyway, where this goes is just below that joint where your femur connects to your pelvis, and it goes just below that, and that's how you know your bulge point, right? So you say go to here, go down a little bit. Okay, this is my bulge point. So now I know to go to here, and from here, now I know that the angle of that slant really. And that was a very terrible representation. And so these are the basics, the things that I found that should be helpful, I think, when trying to draw proportions. And of course, the arms, those were all just practicing. That didn't make any sense, but hopefully I'll elaborate on that later. So now I'm going to try to draw another proportion, or proportionate body, and try to compare it to the one I did last week, or at this beginning of this topic. So I'm going to be using this, of course, as my reference for proportions. You should always have a reference. Well, not always, but every once in a while you should always check back with the reference, because it keeps your brain up to date, I suppose, so you don't get distortions in your proportions from just trying to do it from memory. Okay, so I always start out with the head size. Well, that's what I do, you don't have to, but start with the head. Now for the neck size, I usually choose from about the chin point and go down about like a quarter of my overall head size. So that's about my head size. I'll probably go about a quarter down, about that much, about a quarter, not exactly. So about a quarter, and then that's the distance between this point of where the neck, or sorry, the distance between the neck from the body. So now I know that this is my point where my neck is going to go into my chest area. So now I can draw a box around that. That's very wrong. Not right looking. So something like that. So now this is the top of my chest. I'm just drawing simple shapes. And from here, I'm going to measure one head size. So about that. Is that right? A little longer right there. So about that. So now this is the part where my chest will end. I'm going to draw a curved line here to imply 3D space. May not work that well, but whatever. And I'm going to put in my second head size for the abdomen area. So now I know from this size here that remembering that the rib cage ends about like around 2/3 or about half. So that's about the point where it's going to go down. Going like that. Now this looks a little weird. This is just what I've found so far. May not be right. Just a way that works for me. It always looks better once you throw the anatomy on top. Drawing through. And this is kind of a weird, I think it didn't draw the perspective right. So now I got my chest in. Now I can add in the neck. I'm just going to draw like a cylinder from the base of the skull right there. This is drawing through. If you imagine this is a sphere, and I'm going on the other side and trying to get under where the base of your skull is, trying to connect the neck from there to there. Something like that. And remembering our collarbone just goes just below this line here. Let me go from here. Hopefully you can see that. Collarbone goes like up to the shoulder like that. I'm going to draw in my sphere for the abdomen. Now for the next head size, you want to decide, this is just if you're like going on an angle. I'm going to have my angle like that. So the head size will be kind of warped and change a little bit, so it's not going to be straight down, it's going to be like that. So from here to about there, because the pelvis is not straight. And I think I got the rib cage a little too long because I didn't take into account this perspective here. So it looks like it's actually longer than it should be. But we can always fix that in our next drawing. Because the more drawings you pump out, the better you will get. Versus just trying to perfect one drawing. So what you should do is when you make a mistake, notice you made a mistake and try to fix it in your next drawing. Add the points to where the thighs will start. Add in using this as a reference. See how the joints start there, which is like just about at the bottom, but not quite. So like right there is where the joint goes. And remembering that the thigh is 2 heads lengths. that's going straight down. Remembering our bulge goes just below that, so let's say right here. Now this part doesn't really apply to proportions, it's more about getting into the details. When you're drawing the muscles, you should know that that's where the bulge goes. It's not really super important for the foundations. Drawing the butt cheek, I don't know if that's right. I haven't really looked into reference much. I just drew that. This is going to go back in space a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit shorter. It has to be at an angle like that. So that's full head length. Cut off there. I'm not sure if that looks like it's going back into space. I'll have to figure that out when we visit foreshortening eventually. Now your elbow goes at just above where this ends, and it should be just longer than one head's length. Same with the forearm, it should be longer than one head's length, because in total it should be about 2 and I believe 3/4 head's length, the whole arm, not including the hand, I believe. So let's see, that's about 1, 2.5 almost, or not quite a half, 2 1/4. Should be a little longer. The shins are also, or your calves are also 2 heads lengths. In total, the whole leg makes up 4 from that joint to the ankle. Doesn't quite look right. And if this is going back into space, this is also going to have to go back into space, so it's going to be a little shorter. Doesn't really look looks weird. Drawing the hands. Blocking the hands at least. So your wrist should go just below this, if you got your lengths right. This arm seems too short. This leg does not look like it's foreshortening. It's supposed to be going back in space, but it doesn't really look like that. And the neck, let's get that in. Neck ends down right there at your collarbone. Okay, that was better than my earlier attempts. I think my arms are always too short, and I don't know about the legs. I think the legs were okay. I think the rib cage is messed up too. But overall, I think I got a lot better than I used to be, which, as you can see, yes, definitely much better than that. but as always, you can still use practice. So that's going to be it for this video. My proportions have improved, not a ton, but well, actually they have improved a lot from when I was trying. It was really bad, but with this, it's better, much better than it was, but still can use tons of improvement. And I hope you improve too. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Next topic, I think, is going to be hands. Those are really difficult for me to do, so I really need to practice on those. So see you later.